I'm Anna, I'm 29, and I recently discovered that the man I've loved for 2 years has been living a double life. My boyfriend, Liam, told me he was just co-parenting with his ex-wife, but her social media told a different story, a story filled with romantic date nights, weekend trips, and a bond that looked a lot less like co-parenting and a lot more like a continuing marriage. It turns out he never stopped being married to her, at least not in his mind. Our story, or what I thought was our story, began on a crisp autumn day at a local coffee shop. Liam was charming, handsome, and carried a faint air of melancholy that I found intriguing. He was a project manager, structured and dependable, and he was honest from the very beginning about his situation. He was divorced, with a beautiful 6-year-old daughter named Lily, and his world revolved around her. His ex-wife, Isabella, was still a significant part of his life, but only, he assured me, as Lily's mother. "We have a golden rule," he explained on our third date, his eyes sincere. "Everything we do is about providing stability for Lily. No drama, no fighting. We are a team for her and that's it." I admired that. As a graphic designer, I appreciated structure and clean lines, and his approach to his past relationship seemed so mature and well-adjusted. I had heard horror stories from friends about boyfriends with baggage and bitter exes. Liam felt like a breath of fresh air. He wasn't running from his responsibilities, he was facing them head-on. My friends were impressed, my family was cautiously optimistic, and I was falling completely in love. For 2 years I accepted his world. I understood that Lily came first. I learned to be flexible, to reschedule our plans at a moment's notice, and to never question the time he spent with Isabella for their daughter's sake. Looking back now, the red flags were not just there. They were giant, crimson banners flapping in a hurricane, and I was too love-blind to see them. The first major incident happened about 6 months into our relationship. We had planned a weekend getaway to a small coastal town to celebrate my birthday. I'd been looking forward to it for weeks, imagining long walks on the beach and quiet dinners. The night before we were supposed to leave, Liam called me. His voice was strained. "Anna, honey, I'm so sorry," he started, and my stomach immediately sank. "Something's come up. Lily's school is having a parent-child harmony workshop this weekend. It's mandatory for parents who are co-parenting. Isabella just reminded me. It's all about building a cooperative environment for the kids." I was disappointed, but I forced myself to be understanding. "Oh, okay, is it all weekend?" "It's a 2-day retreat, yeah," he said, sighing dramatically. "Believe me, I'd much rather be on the coast with you, but the school psychologist says this is crucial for Lily's development. Isabella and I have to present a united front." A united front. It was his favorite phrase. I pictured them sitting in a stuffy school auditorium, listening to lectures on child psychology. It sounded awful, and I felt a pang of guilt for being selfish. "Of course, Liam, we can reschedule. Lily is what's most important." "You're the best," he'd said, his voice filled with relief. "I'll make it up to you, I promise." He sent me pictures throughout that weekend. A selfie of him and Lily painting, a photo of a whiteboard with bullet points about active listening, and a text saying he missed me. It all seemed so legitimate, so responsible. I bragged to my friends about how seriously he took fatherhood. Now, the thought of that weekend makes me feel sick. Another time, a few months later, was our first anniversary. I had made reservations at a fancy restaurant we'd been wanting to try. I bought a new dress. An hour before I was supposed to meet him, he called again. This time, the excuse was more frantic. "Isabella just called me in a panic," he said, his voice rushed. "Lily has a very high fever and she's asking for both of us. She's at Isabella's house and she won't calm down. I have to go. I'm so sorry, Anna." "Is she okay? Do you need me to come?" I asked, my own plans instantly forgotten in my concern for this little girl I'd grown to care about from a distance. "No, no, you stay put. It'll just confuse her. Isabella and I know how to handle this. It's best if we do it together. The old routine, you know," he explained. "We'll be up all night with her. I'll call you when I can." He didn't call until the next morning. He sounded exhausted. He told me Lily's fever had finally broken around 3 a.m. and that he had crashed on Isabella's couch. I felt nothing but sympathy for him. I sent him a care package of coffee and pastries via delivery service. He texted me a photo of the box on a kitchen counter, Isabella's kitchen counter, with the caption, "My lifesaver. Thank you for being so understanding." I prided myself on being that understanding girlfriend. I was mature. I wasn't the jealous type. I was secure in our relationship, or so I told myself. Liam reinforced this narrative constantly. He would often praise me for how different I was from other women he knew. "My friends can't believe how cool you are about the whole Isabella situation," he'd say, kissing my forehead. "They all have girlfriends who would throw a fit, but you get it. You get that family is complicated." I did get it, or rather, I got the version of it he sold to me. I never met Isabella. Liam had insisted it was for the best. "It would just complicate the dynamic for Lily," he'd said early on. "She's a sensitive kid. Right now, she understands mommy and daddy. Introducing a new person on my side would be a lot for her to process. I want to wait until the time is absolutely perfect." 2 years, for 2 years, the time was never perfect. I had met Lily a handful of times, always in a neutral setting like a park or an ice cream shop, and always for a brief, supervised visit. She was a sweet, shy girl who seemed to like me well enough, but I was always just Daddy's friend, Anna. I was a footnote in the story of their perfect, modern, co-parenting family, and I accepted it. I accepted it all because I loved him, and I believed in the future he promised me. A future where, eventually, the time would be perfect, and I would finally be brought into the inner circle. I just never realized the circle was already closed, with no room for me at all. The quiet hum of my laptop was the only sound in my apartment. It was a Tuesday night, and I was working late on a branding project, trying to find the perfect shade of blue for a new wellness app. Liam was, once again, with his family. This time, it was for Lily's parent-teacher conference, followed by what he called a post-conference strategy dinner with Isabella. "We have to go over her progress report together and make sure we're on the same page with her homework plan," he had explained, already sounding apologetic. "It'll probably go late, don't wait up." I didn't, this was our normal. I had my work, my own space, and my own life. A healthy relationship, I told myself, didn't require being attached at the hip. But as the clock ticked past 11 p.m., a familiar loneliness began to creep in. It was a feeling I had become an expert at pushing down, a small, sad voice that whispered, "Is this all there is?" I closed my laptop, the blue on the screen suddenly feeling cold and sterile. I stretched and walked to the kitchen to make myself a cup of tea. As the water heated, I scrolled aimlessly through my phone. I saw photos of my friends with their partners, at dinner, on vacation, or just lounging on the couch together. Simple, shared moments. The kind of moments Liam and I rarely had without the shadow of his other life looming over us. A text from my best friend Maya popped up. "Thinking of you, how was your night?" I typed back a cheerful lie. "Good, just finishing up some work. Liam's at a parent-teacher thing for Lily." Her reply came instantly. "He is such a good dad, seriously, but don't you ever wish you could go with him, just to be there?" I stared at her text. It was a question I never allowed myself to ask. Voicing it felt like a betrayal of the trust I had in Liam, a violation of the understanding girlfriend role I played so well. "It's just easier this way for Lily," I typed, the words feeling hollow even on the screen. Maya, who had always been my biggest supporter but also my most honest critic, sent a thoughtful reply. "I guess. I just worry about you, Anna. It's been 2 years. You deserve to be more than just Daddy's friend." Her words stung because they were true. A knot of resentment, one I usually kept tightly bound, began to loosen. Why couldn't I go? Why was I still being kept at arm's length? Was Lily really that fragile, or was it something else? I dismissed the thought as quickly as it came. It was late, and I was tired and lonely. I was letting my insecurities get the better of me. Liam loved me. He was just in a complicated situation. I finished my tea and got ready for bed, the unease still lingering. As I was brushing my teeth, I remembered something Maya had mentioned a few weeks ago. You know, Isabella has a blog, she'd said casually. Some lifestyle thing. A friend of a friend follows her, says her pictures are like something out of a magazine. At the time, I had shrugged it off. I had no interest in seeing the curated, perfect life of my boyfriend's ex-wife. It felt like inviting trouble into my head. But tonight, fueled by Maya's text and my own creeping doubts, a morbid curiosity took hold. What did she post about? Did she ever mention Liam? What did this woman, who held so much indirect power over my life, even look like up close? With trembling fingers, I opened my browser and typed Isabella Lifestyle Blog into the search bar. Her name was Unique Inu. That the first result was her. The blog was called The Gilded Life. The homepage was a professionally taken photo of her and Lily in a field of wildflowers, both of them dressed in flowing white dresses, laughing at something just out of frame. Isabella was stunning, not in a flashy way, but with an effortless, natural beauty, long, dark hair, warm eyes, and a radiant smile. She looked like the kind of woman who made her own organic sourdough and never raised her voice. I felt a pang of something ugly, jealousy. I clicked on her About Me page. Hi, I'm Isabella, it read. I'm a mama, a dreamer, and a firm believer that you can create a beautiful life, even when things don't go according to the original plan. My world is my sweet daughter, Lily, and navigating the art of modern parenting with my best friend and co-parent. We're proving that family isn't about a piece of paper, it's about unconditional love and a commitment that never fades. A commitment that never fades. The phrase echoed in my mind. She was talking about Liam, her best friend, her co-parent. It was all so perfectly packaged, so noble. It made my feelings of exclusion seem petty and small. I navigated to her blog posts. They were filled with recipes for gluten-free muffins, tips for mindful parenting, and guides to creating a minimalist home. It was all very impressive and, honestly, a little intimidating. Then I saw the link to her Instagram profile, and without a second thought, I clicked it. Her profile was public. The grid was a sea of soft, beige-toned photos, Lily's ballet recitals, artisanal lattes, beautifully plated meals, and smiling selfies. It was the picture of a happy, fulfilled life. I started scrolling, my thumb moving mechanically down the screen, going back weeks, then months. And that's when I saw it, the first one. A picture posted 6 weeks ago. It was a photo of 2 wine glasses clinking together with a fancy restaurant blurred in the background. The caption read, "Much-needed date night with my favorite person. So important for parents to recharge their own batteries. Red date night parents' night out stillus." My breath caught in my throat. Date night. I checked the date of the post. It was a Friday night. I remembered that night perfectly. Liam had canceled on our movie night because, he'd said, Isabella was having a hard time and needed someone to talk to. He was going over to her place to be a supportive friend. He'd made it sound like a chore, a heavy responsibility. But this wasn't a somber support session. This was a toast. This was a celebration. My heart started to pound, a frantic, panicked rhythm against my ribs. It's just a caption, I told myself. Maybe she called it a date night, but he didn't. People use that term loosely. It meant nothing. But I couldn't stop. My thumb flew across the screen, scrolling faster and faster, a desperate archaeological dig through their recent past. And the evidence just kept piling up, each photo a fresh stab of betrayal. The world shrank to the glowing screen of my phone. My living room, my comfortable couch, the half-finished cup of tea on the table, it all faded into a blurry periphery. My entire focus was on Isabella's Instagram grid, a perfectly curated timeline of my own deception. I scrolled back 3 months. There was a photo of Liam and Isabella, arm in arm, smiling warmly at the camera. They were standing in front of a rustic-looking winery. Lily was nowhere in sight. The caption was saccharine sweet. Spent the weekend reconnecting with nature and each other. The best co-parenting happens when you're friends first. Winery weekend parent strip best friends. My mind raced, connecting the dots with horrifying speed. That was the weekend of the Parent-Child Harmony workshop, the mandatory school retreat. He had sent me a picture of a whiteboard of him and Lily painting, but there was no mention of a winery. There was no mention of this cozy, romantic-looking getaway for two. He had lied. Not a small, white lie, but a detailed, elaborate fabrication. My hands began to shake. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. This couldn't be real. There had to be an explanation. I kept scrolling, desperate to find something, anything, that would disprove the sickening theory forming in my mind. Instead, I found more confirmation. A post from 5 months ago. A dimly lit, artistic shot of Liam's hands covering Isabella's as they rested on a restaurant menu. Anniversary, the caption read simply, followed by a heart emoji. I clicked on the comments. Someone had written, "Anniversary of what? You guys are the cutest." Isabella had replied, "The day we decided to be a family forever, no matter what." Read. Anniversary, what anniversary? Their wedding anniversary. It had to be. I checked the date of the post. May 12th. It was the night of our own anniversary, our first anniversary. The night he had rushed off because Lily supposedly had a raging fever. The night he'd claimed to have spent on Isabella's couch, exhausted and worried. He wasn't nursing a sick child. He was out at a fancy restaurant, celebrating his enduring commitment to his ex-wife, holding her hands across the table. The care package I'd sent the next morning, they had probably laughed about it. A choked sob escaped my lips. It was a raw, wounded sound that I barely recognized as my own. The understanding girlfriend, the cool girlfriend, the secure girlfriend, she was a fraud. She was a fool. I was a fool. I kept going, a glutton for punishment. The evidence was overwhelming, a digital avalanche burying me in the truth. Every canceled plan, every last-minute emergency, every family commitment now had a corresponding photo on Isabella's feed. There was a selfie of them at a concert in the park, the night Liam told me he had to help Isabella assemble a new bed for Lily. There was a photo of their feet kicked up in front of a fireplace, wine glasses in hand, the weekend he was supposedly on a boys' fishing trip. The caption read, "No better way to spend a rainy Saturday." There was a photo of them at a Christmas market, cheeks flushed from the cold, sharing a cup of hot cocoa. He had told me he was taking Lily to see Santa, and that Isabella was just dropping her off. It wasn't just the big events. It was the small, casual moments too. A photo of a takeout pizza box on a coffee table with the caption, "Our weekly strategy session." A picture of Liam on Isabella's couch, fast asleep, with Lily curled up on his chest. "My two sleepyheads," Isabella had written. "So grateful for a partner who always shows up." Partner, not co-parent, not ex-husband, partner. The lie was so comprehensive, so breathtaking in its scope that I almost couldn't process it. He hadn't just been on a few dates with her. He had built an entire, separate, ongoing relationship that ran parallel to ours. He had two lives. In one, he was the mature, responsible, divorced dad dating me. In the other, he was Isabella's devoted partner, part of a family unit that had never really broken up. My mind replayed 100 conversations. "I just want things to be simple, Anna. No drama. You're so understanding, it's why this works. I need to keep my worlds separate for now, for Lily's sake." It was all manipulation. Every word was designed to keep me in my box, to keep me quiet and compliant so he could continue his life uninterrupted. He hadn't kept his worlds separate for Lily's sake. He had kept them separate for his own. He wanted the stability and comfort of his family with Isabella, and he wanted the novelty and affection of a relationship with me. He wanted everything, and he had been getting it. The final, crushing blow came when I scrolled all the way back to the very beginning of our relationship 2 years ago. Just a few weeks after our first date, she had posted a photo. It was just of her, smiling mysteriously into the camera, holding a single red rose. The caption was cryptic. "Sometimes you have to let things break to see if they're strong enough to be put back together again. Here's to new beginnings." He was already weaving his narrative back then. While he was charming me over coffee and telling me about his mature, amicable divorce, he was simultaneously sending his ex-wife roses and testing the waters of a reconciliation. He hadn't been a divorced man looking for a new start. He had been a man on a break, keeping his options open. And I was his primary option, the one he had chosen to build a life with, or so I'd thought. It was clear now that I was never the main story. I was the subplot. I finally locked my phone and tossed it onto the couch as if it were on fire. The screen went dark, but the images were burned into my mind. Liam and Isabella laughing at the winery, their hands intertwined on the menu, their feet propped up by the fire. A happy couple, a real couple. The silence of my apartment was deafening. The lie wasn't just in the photos, it was in the emptiness of the room around me. It was in every night I had spent alone, telling myself to be patient. It was in every excuse I had accepted without question. The entire foundation of our 2-year relationship was a sinkhole, and I was just now realizing I had been in a free fall the entire time. The tears that had been welling in my eyes finally spilled over, hot and bitter. I wasn't just crying for the man I had lost, because the man I loved had never really existed. I was crying for my own foolish, trusting heart. The hours that followed were a blur of shock and agonizing clarity. Sleep was an impossible dream. I paced the floor of my small apartment, from the living room to the kitchen and back again, my mind a relentless projector replaying scenes from the last 2 years. Every memory was now tainted, every sweet moment soured by the truth. I remembered the time Liam had shown up at my door with flowers, apologizing for being distant. Work is just so stressful, he'd said, and balancing it all with Lily, it's a lot. Thank you for being my calm in the storm. I had melted, my frustrations instantly forgotten. Now I wondered what was the real cause of his stress. Was it his job, or was it the mental gymnastics of juggling 2 women and 2 lives? Was I his calm, or just his convenient escape? I thought about his apartment. It was a sterile, masculine space that always felt more like a temporary hotel room than a home. It had very few personal touches. He had always said he wasn't good at decorating, but now I saw it for what it was. A neutral ground. A stage set. There were no photos of us on display. When I had once tried to place a framed picture of us on his nightstand, he had gently moved it to a bookshelf in the living room. I just want to keep this space simple, he'd explained. Less clutter, less stress. It wasn't about clutter, it was about plausible deniability. If Isabella ever had to stop by, there would be no evidence of me. The sickness in my stomach intensified. Had she been there? Had they sat on his couch, the one where he and I had watched movies and laughed about their secret? The thought was so vile, so deeply humiliating, that I had to sit down, wrapping my arms around myself as if to hold my splintering world together. At around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed on the couch. It was a text from Liam. Just got home, the dinner went on forever. These things are always such a drag. Thinking of you, hope you're asleep, love you. Love you, the 2 words felt like a slap in the face. How could he type that? How could he lie so effortlessly, so convincingly? The casualness of it was what hurt the most. This wasn't a grand, passionate affair born of a moment of weakness. This was a calculated, long-term deception, woven into the very fabric of his daily life. Lying to me was as natural to him as breathing. I stared at the text, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. 1,000 angry replies flooded my mind. You're a liar, I know everything. Who are you really having dinner with? But I couldn't bring myself to type them. A confrontation over text felt cheap, and more importantly, I wasn't ready. I needed to see his face when he said the words, to watch his expression as his carefully constructed world came crashing down. Instead, I turned my phone off and tried to breathe. I went through the motions of my nightly routine, washing my face, changing into my pajamas, but I felt like a stranger in my own skin. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a pale, haunted version of myself. The confident, happy woman from that morning was gone. In her place was someone who looked lost and incredibly small. I finally crawled into bed, but my mind wouldn't shut off. It was a chaotic storm of questions. Did he love her? Did he love me? Was it possible to love 2 people at once in such a duplicitous way? And what about Lily? He used her as an excuse for everything, a shield for his lies. He claimed everything he did was for her stability, but what could be more destabilizing than this? He wasn't just deceiving me. He was modeling a deeply dishonest way of life for his own daughter. I replayed Isabella's About Me page in my head. Family isn't about a piece of paper, it's about a commitment that never fades. She wasn't just in on the lie, she was a co-author. She curated their public image as the perfect modern family while knowing he had another woman in his life, a woman who was being fed a completely different story. Were they partners in crime? Did they discuss what to tell me? The idea of them strategizing, of my entire relationship being a topic in their co-parenting meetings, made me feel like an object, a pawn in a game I didn't even know I was playing. Dawn broke, painting my bedroom in shades of gray and purple. I hadn't slept for a minute. I felt hollowed out, fragile, and yet, somewhere deep beneath the shock and the pain, a cold, hard ember of anger was beginning to glow. The grief was still there, but it was starting to make room for resolve. I was not going to be a victim in this story. I was not going to let him gaslight me or twist the narrative. I had the proof. I had the pictures. I had the truth. I got out of bed, my movement stiff and deliberate. I made coffee, the familiar ritual, a small anchor in the churning sea of my emotions. As I sat at my kitchen table, watching the sun rise over the city, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't unsee what I had seen. I couldn't unknow what I now knew. The relationship was over. It had been over for a long time, I just hadn't realized it. The only thing left to do was to tell him. I needed to confront him, not for closure. There was no closing a wound this deep, but for myself. I needed to say the words out loud to reclaim my own story and my own dignity. I turned my phone back on, my hand steady now. I sent him a simple text. "We need to talk, can you come over aft? Work today." His reply was almost immediate. "Of course, is everything okay?" I looked at his question, a perfect encapsulation of his duplicity. He feigned concern while knowing exactly what he was hiding. I typed back one word: no. The hours leading up to Liam's arrival were the longest of my life. I tried to work, but the design elements on my screen swam before my eyes, meaningless shapes and colors. Every tick of the clock was a countdown to the moment my life would officially split into a before and an after. I rehearsed what I would say, but the words felt clumsy and inadequate. How do you summarize 2 years of lies? How do you articulate a betrayal so profound it has rewritten your own history? At 6 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. My heart hammered against my ribs. I took a deep breath, walked to the door, and opened it. Liam stood there, a bouquet of my favorite daisies in his hand and a look of practiced concern on his face. "Anna, you had me worried all day," he said, stepping inside to kiss me. I turned my head so his lips landed on my cheek. He faltered, his smile flickering for a second. "What's wrong?" I didn't say anything. I just walked back into the living room and sat down on the armchair, leaving the couch opposite me empty for him. He placed the flowers awkwardly on the coffee table and sat, his posture tense. "Okay, you're scaring me," he said, attempting a light-hearted tone that fell completely flat. "Did I forget something? Another anniversary?" He chuckled, but the sound was hollow. I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since the discovery. I studied his face. The handsome features I had once found so comforting now seemed like a mask. "I saw Isabella's Instagram," I said, my voice quiet but steady. The shift in his demeanor was instantaneous. The feigned concern vanished, replaced by a flicker of panic in his eyes, so quick that if I had blinked, I would have missed it. He recovered almost immediately, schooling his features into a look of mild confusion. "Her Instagram, okay, what about it?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "She posts a lot of pictures," I continued, my gaze unwavering. "Pictures of her life, of Lily, and of you." He shifted on the couch, leaning forward slightly. "Anna, what is this about? We've talked about this. She and I are co-parents. Sometimes we're in the same place at the same time. It's for Lily." "Is that what you call it?" I asked, my voice gaining a harder edge. "Co-parenting, because it looks a lot like dating to me. The winery trip, for instance. The one that was supposed to be a parent-child harmony workshop." He had the grace to look momentarily stunned. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He was searching for the right lie, the right spin. That was part of the retreat, he said finally, the lie sounding weak even to his own ears. It was an informal session for the parents to connect. The school sponsored it. Really, the school sponsored your romantic weekend getaway? I shot back, my patience snapping. And what about your anniversary dinner? The night Lily had a fever, was that a school-sponsored event too? His face paled. He knew he was caught. But instead of confessing, instead of apologizing, he pivoted. He switched from denial to gaslighting. Okay, I can see how you would misunderstand that, he began, his voice taking on a calm, condescending tone, as if he were explaining a complex concept to a child. Yes, we went to dinner. It was our wedding anniversary. For us, it's not about romance, it's about honoring the family we built. We have to show Lily that even though mommy and daddy aren't married anymore, we still respect our history. It's a therapeutic exercise, Anna. Our family counselor suggested it. The audacity of it left me breathless. He was twisting his deception into a form of therapy, painting his infidelity as a noble act of responsible parenting. A family counselor? I asked, my voice dripping with disbelief. Did this counselor also suggest you lie to your girlfriend of 2 years about it? Did they suggest you invent a story about a sick child so you could go celebrate with your ex-wife? I didn't want to upset you, he exclaimed, raising his voice now, taking on the role of the aggrieved party. I knew you wouldn't understand the complexity of our situation. I was trying to protect you from it. Protect me? I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. You weren't protecting me, Liam. You were deceiving me. You built our entire relationship on a foundation of lies. Every time you canceled, every family emergency, every weekend you were gone, it was a lie. You were on dates. You were on vacations. You were playing house with her while telling me to be patient, to be understanding. He stood up and began to pace, running a hand through his hair in a gesture of pure frustration. You're being dramatic. It's not playing house. It's my life. Isabella and I have a C. Held together. We have a history. That doesn't just disappear. What we have is complicated, and it's not something you can just understand by looking at a few pictures on social media. Oh, I think I understand it perfectly, I said, my voice dangerously low. I stood up to face him. You want it all. You want the comfort and stability of your family with Isabella, the one you never really left. And you want me on the side, someone new and uncomplicated who doesn't ask too many questions. You've been living a double life. He stopped pacing and turned to face me, his eyes pleading. It's not like that, Anna. What I have with you is real. It's separate, I love you. No, you don't, I said, the words feeling like stones in my mouth. You don't love me, you can't, because you are still completely, utterly in love with her. You never let her go. You said it yourself, or rather, she did. A commitment that never fades. You're not co-parenting, Liam. In your mind, you're still married. That was the line. That was the one that finally broke through his wall of justifications. His face crumpled. The fight went out of him, replaced by a deep, weary sadness. It's not that simple, he whispered, his voice cracking. When Lily was born, we promised each other we would always be a family. When we divorced, the promise didn't change. It's the only way I know how to be a father, by being her partner. And there it was, the truth, not the whole truth but the core of it. He wasn't just lying to me, he was lying to himself. He had created a narrative where his inability to let go of his past was rebranded as good parenting. He had built a cage of his own design and had been trying to live in it with 2 different people. So where did I fit into that promise, Liam? I asked quietly. Was I just a temporary guest, someone to keep you company until you and Isabella finally dropped the X from your titles? He had no answer. He just stared at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and self-pity. He looked like a man who had finally been forced to see the wreckage he had caused. But there was no remorse for me, only for the fact that his perfect, compartmentalized world had just exploded. And in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that there was nothing left to save. The silence that followed Liam's confession was heavy and suffocating. He just stood there, a deflated balloon of a man, all his excuses and justifications having leaked out. He was waiting for me to do something, to yell, to cry, to offer some path forward. But I was empty. The fight had drained out of me, leaving behind a cold, desolate calm. "You need to leave," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. He looked up, shocked, as if he thought the conversation wasn't over. "Anna, please, let's talk about this. We can work through it. I can talk to Isabella. We can set clearer boundaries." The offer was so laughable, so pathetically late, that I almost felt sorry for him. Boundaries? Liam, we are so far beyond boundaries. There is no working through this. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is a fundamental deception about who you are. The man I've been with for 2 years doesn't exist. He was a character you were playing. "That's not true," he pleaded, taking a step toward me. I instinctively took a step back. "Isn't it?" I challenged. The man I was dating was a devoted, single father navigating a respectful but distant co-parenting relationship. The real you is a man still in a partnership with his ex-wife, lying to everyone, including himself, to maintain the status quo. Which one of those men am I supposed to work through this with? He had nothing to say. The truth was indefensible. "Get your things," I said, gesturing to the few items he kept at my place. A toothbrush, a spare charger, a sweatshirt draped over a chair. "I want you to take them and go, and then I want you to lose my number." Tears welled in his eyes. "Please don't do this, don't throw away 2 years. "You threw them away, Liam," I said, the cold calm in my voice finally cracking with a tremor of pain. "You threw them away every time you lied to me. Every secret date night, every hidden anniversary, every time you used your daughter as an excuse. Our relationship was a casualty of your refusal to move on. Now please just go." He must have seen the finality in my eyes because he didn't argue anymore. He walked around the apartment like a ghost, silently gathering his few possessions. Each item he picked up was a small testament to our shared life, a life that was now being erased before my eyes. He put them in a small grocery bag. When he was done, he paused at the door. "I really did love you, Anna," he said quietly. I didn't respond. I just looked at him, my heart a frozen lump in my chest. Love to me meant honesty. It meant respect. It meant building a future, not hiding in the past. Whatever he felt for me, it wasn't that. After he left, I locked the door and leaned against it, the last of my strength giving out. The tears I had been holding back finally came, a flood of grief for the future I had lost, and for the time I could never get back. The next day, I called Maya and told her everything. I laid out the whole sordid story, from the Instagram discovery to the hollow confrontation. She listened patiently, letting me talk until I was all cried out. "Oh, Anna," she said softly when I was done. "I am so sorry. He's a coward, a complete and utter coward." "I feel so stupid, Maya," I whispered. "How did I not see it? It was all right there." "You're not stupid," she said fiercely. "You're trusting. You saw the good in him and believed what he told you because that's what good people do. He exploited that. This is not your fault. This is 100% his." Her words were a balm on my raw emotions. Talking to her helped me see the situation from outside, my own bubble of shame and humiliation. Liam's actions weren't a reflection of my worth. They were a reflection of his own weakness and moral failure. Over the next few days, I made a conscious decision to reclaim my life. It was an act of survival. The first step was the hardest. I opened my phone and went to his contact. My thumb hovered over the block button. It felt so permanent, so brutal. It wasn't just blocking a number, it was closing a chapter, sealing a door forever. I took a deep breath and pressed it. A sense of relief, immediate and profound, washed over me. Next, I went to Instagram. I found Isabella's profile, that perfect, gilded cage of lies, and blocked her too. I didn't want to see her face ever again. I didn't want to know if she continued to post about her unfading commitment. Her story was no longer intertwined with mine. The days that followed were hard. My apartment felt cavernously empty. Every little thing reminded me of Liam, the coffee mug he used, the show we were binge-watching, the route I took home that passed by his office. Grief came in waves, a physical ache in my chest, but alongside the grief was a growing sense of liberation. I started pouring all my energy back into myself. I took on a challenging new project at work, one that required my full creative attention. I started going to a yoga class after work, the physical exertion, a welcome distraction from the turmoil in my head. I reconnected with friends I had unintentionally neglected, my social calendar so often held hostage by Liam's unpredictable schedule. One evening, about 2 weeks after the breakup, I was having dinner with Maya. "How are you doing?" she asked gently. "Really doing?" I considered her question. "Honestly, it's awful," I admitted. "But it's also better. It's like I was holding my breath for 2 years, waiting for him to fully choose me, and now I can finally exhale. The air is cold and it hurts my lungs, but at least I can breathe again." She smiled and reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "That's the strongest I've ever heard you sound." And she was right. I was hurt, but I wasn't broken. I had chosen myself. I had chosen honesty and self-respect over a comfortable lie. I had walked away from a man who was living in the past, and in doing so, I had given myself the gift of a future that was entirely my own. Life began to find a new rhythm. The sharp, stabbing pain of the betrayal slowly faded into a dull, persistent ache. It was a scar, a permanent part of my history, but it was no longer an open wound. The emptiness of my apartment was gradually filled with new things: new books on my nightstand, new music playing from my speakers, and the laughter of friends during late-night talks. I was rediscovering who I was without Liam, and while it was a daunting process, it was also empowering. About a month after the breakup, I received an email from an unknown address. The subject line was simply Anna. My blood ran cold. I knew it was from him. I almost deleted it without opening it, but a part of me needed to see what final, desperate excuse he could possibly offer. The email was long and rambling. He wrote about how sorry he was, how he had made a terrible mistake, and how he had been doing a lot of soul-searching. He claimed he had ended things with Isabella, not just the dates, but the whole enmeshed, codependent dynamic. He said he was in therapy, trying to understand why he did what he did. He ended the email with a simple, desperate plea. "I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking for one more chance to show you that the man you fell in love with is the real me." I read the email twice. A year ago, a month ago even, those words might have given me a flicker of hope. But now, they just felt like more of the same. More words, more promises, more attempts to manage a narrative. The man I fell in love with was the one who was honest and sincere from the start, but that man had been an illusion. The real Liam was the one who could lie to my face for 2 years. Therapy couldn't erase that. With a strange sense of detachment, I moved the email to my trash folder and then emptied it. There was no anger, no agonizing deliberation. There was just a quiet certainty. I was done. His journey of self-discovery was his to take, but it was not my responsibility to wait at the finish line. My own journey was taking me in a different direction. I found joy in simple things again. I spent a weekend hiking with Maya, the crisp mountain air feeling like a purification. I dove headfirst into my work and produced a design portfolio that I was immensely proud of, leading to an offer for a senior position at a larger agency. I was building a life that was solid, a life where I was the main character, not a supporting role in someone else's drama. One afternoon, while walking home from my yoga class, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a friend request on a social media platform I rarely used. The name was Isabella. My finger hovered over the decline button, but morbid curiosity got the better of me one last time. I accepted, thinking I could just block her immediately after. Her profile was private, but now that we were connected, I could see it. Her most recent post was from that morning. It was a picture of a moving truck parked outside the house she had once shared with Liam. The caption was short and pointed. "Sometimes you have to burn the whole thing down to let the light in. Onwards and upwards." So he hadn't been lying in his email. He really had ended it. A part of me felt a flicker of validation, but it was quickly replaced by a profound sense of pity for all of us. What a mess. What a sad, tangled web of weakness and deceit that had cost everyone so much. Isabella was losing her home and her partner. Liam was alone, forced to confront his demons, and I had lost 2 years of my life to a fantasy. I didn't linger on her page. I simply unfriended and blocked her, severing the final, tenuous link to that chapter of my life. Their drama was their own now, and I was officially, finally, a third party with no vested interest. That evening, I sat on my balcony, watching the city lights begin to twinkle. I thought about the lessons I had learned. I learned that love is not about being understanding to the point of self-erasure. I learned that trust, once broken so completely, can never be truly repaired. And I learned that the most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. You have to be willing to choose your own peace over anyone else's promises. The path forward wasn't entirely clear, but for the first time in a long time, it felt full of possibility. It was a blank canvas, and I, the designer, finally had the courage to paint it however I wanted, with bold colors and strong, honest lines. The future was mine. For anyone out there who has ever felt like they were living in someone else's shadow, or for anyone who has had their trust broken, please know this: you are not alone. It is easy to blame yourself, to wonder what you could have done differently. But you cannot take responsibility for someone else's deceit. Your only responsibility is to your own well-being. Walking away from a situation that is slowly eroding your soul is not an act of failure, it is an act of profound strength. You deserve a love that is honest, a partner who is fully present, and a life that doesn't require you to be a secret. Choose yourself, every single time.